Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. And I recently made Aztec Minerals pick in my list because I've seen them sort of entering an inflection point in their exploration of their project in Arizona. Got Argentina on my mind, Simon. Sorry about that. I'm really liking what I see, and I kind of think that the trend they're at is kind of an inflection point in understanding the system. And that's something I look for in an exploration project. And I'm happy to have Simon on to talk about that today. Simon, thanks for joining me.
Well, hey, thanks, Alan, for the opportunity. It's great to chat with you again. I've been following you for like probably 10 years from CEO.ca, so I'm honored to be chatting with you on your recording here.
Oh, well, we got a good audience out there, and after 20 years of doing my research and reporting, I think I've gained an audience that does its homework, I'm always promoting that, and I've been following you guys, and I really like what I'm seeing as far as your understanding of the oxide mineralization and the high grade hits you're getting in gold lately.
Yeah, this whole 17 that we reported a week ago was the highest grade gold hit that we've had at Tombstone over 5 years of drilling now. It was 36 and a half meters of 8.14 grams per ton gold, just straight gold, no equivalent. And then there was about 50 grams of silver in that hit as well. So, on a number of metrics, that was our best hole ever. It was drilled in an area that we hadn't fully explored before. So we have been working over the past few years, not just on drilling, but we have a three-dimensional model of most of the underground workings now of the Tombstone mines of yesteryear. We know obviously about the open pit mine that was in operation in the 80s, and we have good knowledge of the extent of the historic mining, but I think we're the first group to put everything into a computer model. And so that's been guiding us as to, where we might have some unmined targets around Tombstone. And this is the result of that. We hit a nice zone of potential ore around the old Head Center mine, which is one of the historic Tombstone mines from 130, 140 years ago, and hit a really nice block there. And so this was only, I think, the 13th hole of our program that we've gotten results back for.
How
We're
many
currently,
how many did you do, Simon?
how many have we drilled?
Yeah.
So to date, we've drilled 29
Okay.
and we've
So
reported
there's
13. So there's
another
16 in,
got it.
yeah. But there's 16 in the lab, but there are the driller's just on break now until tomorrow. So they're coming back for they do 20-day shifts, so they're coming back for two more shifts before Christmas. So we'll get another, I'm hoping for another 12 to 14 holes before Christmas. So in total, we should still have 30 drill holes to report from this program.
Okay. And how is the cash? I saw, let me, one of the things I always recommend people do is when they do their homework, sometimes you can learn a lot just from going to the headlines. And here's a string that I looked at before was getting ready. You got that big hit, 36 meters, 8 grams of gold, 49 grams of silver. You did a $10 million bought deal. September, you had a high grade silver and high grade gold. Uh, Another in August. You see a nice progression of what's happening at the Tombstone project.
Yeah, and if I could just build on that comment, and right where your cursor is, I think this is important for potential investors is, typically in exploration, you see the big hit and then you see the financing. Um, but this is the opposite. So we had the financing and then the big hit. And that's because we're not a new story, right? We've been around for a long time. We had a big hit in August and September. That led to further financing. And then we had, the labs are just slow. So, we got the financing closed. Some more results came out and now, we have 30 to go. But the point here is that there should not be any perception of finance overhang for our shareholders anymore. We're not going to be raising money now. We have $10 million in the till. We have, I think, a very efficient way of exploring at Tombstone. The US can be quite expensive to drill in. It's just a different ball game down there than, let's say, in Canada or in Mexico. Everything's priced in US dollars, labor costs are high. It's a different country, but we've been doing pretty well on that front. So we don't have a resource yet, but when we have one, I'll be excited to share with the market our discovery cost per ounce, which I think will be very competitive with other projects. So, that 10 million that we raised will get us a long way. These are shallow holes. This is an environment that's relatively cheap to drill in. It's road accessible. We have water wells on site. We have a diesel tank that we source fuel from. We get a lot of efficiencies that I think you don't see on other projects that are a little bit more remote, maybe.
Now, um, you mentioned resource, and I get a little nervous when I hear exploration companies doing resources because, especially when, I think you're at an inflection point here in the exploration of this project, and sometimes projects can get capped in investors' minds when a company does a resource. And I'm kind of wondering about that rationale. Why talk about a resource when you're sort of at an inflection point in the exploration of this project?
No, and I mean that is an excellent point, and I couldn't agree more that you never want to cap the potential of a project that's still growing. And as it relates to Tombstone, we've only really had two misses out of the holes that we've reported so far. So why would you, right? And so we're not, I mentioned the word resource just to demonstrate that, when we have one, it should be obvious that we've done well with the money that the investors have entrusted to us. There's nothing decided yet on that front. I mean, ultimately, when it's big enough, I think there's a way to get a resource out and demonstrate that it's not capped. But I take your point very well. There is no need to race into one, and you're, certainly not going to see one before we have these 30 drill holes reported over the next 90 days, let's say. So we have steady results news flow coming December, January, I would guess into February, just given how the labs are going. And that's really only from the RC portion of our drill program. So we have 2 rigs on site right now. And
Okay.
so the plan map that we're looking at here, most of these collars and traces are related to shallow RC drilling. And we are now starting, I think on Sunday, we're restarting our core drilling program. And this is testing a target at depth. So it's sort of like a secondary program within the same area. And this is testing for the potential of a carbonate replacement deposit style of system below the Bisbee Group sediments here. And our exploration model for this target is based off of the very famous discovery and win of Arizona mining back in 15 to 18, which, no doubt your audience is familiar with. And
Yeah,
so,
I covered it in my report, so it was a very good one. And for my non-geologist audience out there, Simon, why don't you give them a little handle on what a CRD is and where the geological model of how a CRD forms, and you're above that right now. I think you're starting to tap into it maybe. And so tell them a little bit on layman's terms so that they understand what a CRD is.
Sure. So a CRD, as it relates to what we're exploring for here, is the potential for a stratiform uh, body of sulfide. So this would be
So folks, you
unoxidized,
can think of that like a layered cake, if you will.
a layered cake. And, if discovered, these can be profitable to mine, even in an underground situation, as they're fairly big. They can be and predictable. So you're not chasing a vein with sort of a high waste to ore ratio, and big mining companies like this because it's predictable and they can be large. So if you're on to one, the market typically catches the attention, or it'll catch the market's attention. So the discovery of Arizona Mining's large, I think, zinc primary deposit was underneath a historic silver district in Arizona. Now, Arizona is more known for large porphyry copper deposits, but this sort of CRD model is associated with a porphyry, and it can be on the margins of a larger porphyry. So in the case of Arizona Mining's property, now South 32, is associated with Sunnyside porphyry, which is a large porphyry that's a little bit, I think, too deep to mine. But this sulfide mineralization that emanated from that in higher concentrations, and filled in in the limestone beds, is nearby. So as it relates to Tombstone, the porphyry is still to be discovered. So we don't know where that is or if there is one. But we have some historic drill data on the north end of our property, drilled by another operator in the late 80s, that cut 7 meters of 9.1% lead zinc
Simon,
points.
where is that
Yeah,
approximately on where I'm pointing my cursor right now?
stop there,
Yeah,
go a little left, and then go down. See the circle?
right there.
Yeah, right there. It's about there. And so that's 500 meters deep. There's 7 meters of about 10% metal and sulfide. And
Okay.
so that was drilled in the limestone beds below the sedimentary hosted mineralization near surface. So the sediments would be your siltstones, sandstones, very tough to drill. That's why we're RC drilling. A lot of faulting, fracturing, and we're hitting these gold, silver results in QFP, or quartz feldspar porphyry dikes, in veinlets, in oxidized mantos. So these would be similar to CRD ore bodies, but they've been oxidized through weathering over the centuries. So we have a lot of like smoke that what we've been drilling into near surface
It's
is.
interesting that you're getting that smoke not very far where you're getting some of these high grade intersections of gold, like in TR 2517A and 17 and 16 is pretty close, like a couple hundred meters from the smoke.
It's really close, and that high grade intersection sits 400 meters vertically from where we're hitting the high grade near surface. So the target's really interesting. But what's more interesting for us now is, move your magnifying glass, if you don't mind, down to uh, maybe halfway down the pit. So right there, there's a large geophysical anomaly.
Oh
And
yeah, I
so,
saw that in it. I
yeah,
think it's in your presentation, right?
it
Let me
is.
get
It
to
is.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. You can see the presentation?
Yep. So
Can you see the presentation, Simon?
I can. Yeah. Keep going
Okay.
down. I'll tell you which slide to go to. It should be slide. Let me see
I'm
here.
getting close, I think.
20. Slide 20.
Okay, so
And
here's
so,
the outline of the pit.
yeah,
Here's your cross sections. I think I'm getting close.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
bear
yeah.
with me. There we
There
go.
you go. Yeah. So recall, and actually on the left side of the screen, you see the arrow pointing to where I kind of had you put your cursor. So that's where that deep polymetallic, so silver, lead, zinc, sulfide, unoxidized CRD style of mineralization was previously discovered.
Yeah.
And then what we've done to follow up on that is run some deep geophysics over the whole property.
Okay.
And at the same depth as that intersection, but further to the south and sort of more in line with the richer part of the shallow system, there's a large conductor. So this is a resistivity low. And so we interpret this to potentially be additional sulfides in the limestone horizon below the sedimentary horizon. And so it's a little technical, but this is very
Okay,
similar to what.
before you mention that, folks, okay, Simon has talked about a porphyry. So in a porphyry model, you'll then, above that, you can have a CRD. And that's where those fluids that are coming off the porphyry, they hit a permeable package of rock that allows them to sort of grow and deposit the CRD. And then above that can be veins or skarns, these type of systems. And that is the sort of entire system from where it all came from, where you get these juicy systems like CRDs and skarns and veins. And so what we're looking at here is sort of evidence of that entire system. Did I get that right, Simon?
Yeah, I mean that was expertly explained. I actually thank you for that. But and that's I think that the key word though is evidence, right? So
Right.
this is the geologic theory. We have a lot of evidence suggesting that we're in this kind of environment, but the only way to prove that now is to drill.
Okay.
And so we've now reached a point in our company after 5 years where we're now, willing to roll the dice on this target and to drill it. And so that's underway right now. We did start it initially in August, but we ran into some trouble with the drill contract, not the contract rather, but the drill. The drill broke down, and we had to bring in a replacement. And it's a hot market. It's hard to get a drill. Therefore, we had to wait a little bit, and we have one now. So I'm actually heading down to site on Saturday and to basically to witness the restart of the core drilling.
Okay.
And so the core drilling is one going to try to confirm that historic intersection from Santa Fe, T8 that we were looking at.
Okay.
And then two, we're going to sink a couple of holes into that magenta blob and see if that's related to the system further north and or to the mineralization near surface. So that'll tell us
Now,
a lot.
this I see another quite substantial target over here as well. Another conductor
Yes.
that's quite intense.
Yes.
Um, with this geophysics, is this like a slice down from the surface, or is this projected up to the surface?
Hmm. Good question. And it is a 600-meter depth slice.
Okay,
So that would be the same depth as the historic intersection.
got it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good question. Good point of clarification. So yeah, it's a 600-meter slice. The historic Santa Fe intersection was 600 meters deep. So I think you can see why we're excited to test it further south. And I should add that the discovery made at Hermosa Taylor by Arizona Mining was about 1,100 meters deep. So we're roughly half of the depth of the top of their system.
okay.
So I think if we are able to make a similar discovery here, we'll have a bit of a good advantage in terms of not being as deep. And just to compare a little bit, I mean it's a bit early to compare, but why not? Um, One problem that they had, which I think they've solved, but one of the concerns initially was that they had private land, which is quite common around these historic districts. It's just the way it used to work. You could, you could patent your claims and own the surface and the mineral. That
Okay.
doesn't happen anymore, but those rights have survived. So the historic high grade veins near surface would in this part of the world would tend to be covered in patented claims, which are good. That's what we have. But then beyond that, you have federal land, either Bureau of Land Management or Forest Service, and so that's just another layer of bureaucracy to deal with if you want to explore or develop. And so I highlight that because Arizona Mining's project, I think, was kind of nestled in various land title situations. Whereas we have the property footprint that you're looking here is nearly entirely private land, and even the claims around us are privately held. And there is no national forest to deal with in this area. So I think that's an advantage just to point out that, the property footprint here could grow just through standard, acquisition of private property. And then we have been busy staking all of the available BLM claims around us. So there's no
Simon,
forest around us.
I'm noticing something over here. Is this an old mine? What's this down here?
Oh, that's yeah, that's not an old mine.
Oh,
That's just
okay.
some guy's got like a warehouse and he keeps his RV there and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could grow this. So what's exciting about this to me, folks, is that you've got this pit right about in here, and now you've got evidence that there's something deeper from geophysics. I'm assuming that these are geochem sample locations, these dots here.
No, those are the AMT lines. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you know what, if you don't mind, go down to slide 22, go two down, and this will help explain the targets and how that magenta relates. So we've actually plotted the depth of the top of the resistivity anomaly, and
Yeah.
then we've plotted in relation to hole 16 last year, which had a very strong result near surface, and it shows you the blue is the fault, so that's sort of a mineralizing control here. And then the red is this high grade dike that has carried grade for us up and down the pit. And then you can see how that is situated in relation to the mag, or not the mag, but the resistivity low, and how close we are to drilling it. So as part of our
And
core
that's
pro,
all in the limestones, right? Which is your permeable rock, folks, where the fluids can build up for a CRD, and that's what you're looking at for it to be in, right?
that's right. And then if I could just add, notice how we haven't drilled these holes down to depth yet, and that's because, and especially on the cross section on the left, you can see the Bisbee group, the shale, right? You can see that kind of contact between the sediments and the limestone. And so that needs to be RC drilled. It's just super abrasive rock. It's faulted and fractured and it's tough on the core rig. So we
Yeah.
drilled that hole with RC, and now this weekend we're cleaning it out with core, and we're just starting in the limestone with core. So it should drill quick and get down to
Oh,
that
so
target.
folks, what they can do is use the RC hole, and then they can, once they get through all that tough rock, they can then use a core drill, extend the hole with the core drill, right, Simon?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we call it like a pre-collar, and we've left the casing in the top of the hole, and so that's how we deal with that issue. And it's the same with this hole TR 2416. This hole is actually already down to about 390 meters, so it's still above the target, but we had to get a new rig as we were drilling that.
But
So
it looks like you're only needing about another 150 meters or so, and you should be into the limestones, right?
yeah, well, actually on the hole 13 there, I think we're in the limestone at the bottom of the hole. So
Okay.
that hole will go another 500 meters, and it should, confirm or expand on that historic CRD intercept that's
So
noted at
how
the bottom of
far
T8.
is 13 and 16 from each other?
So slide one up and you can see them actually on plan. So they're about
Oh, wow.
500 meters. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Mineralization all over. Now, another thing that I find interesting as I look at this is whether you're looking at the fault or the dike, you got a big spike right of gold right beside, but you're getting mineralization on both sides.
Yeah, and this is an incomplete geologic interpretation. I mean, we wanted to keep this simplified just to sort of explain how we're advancing towards the sulfide target.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there are actually we've identified six parallel dikes in this property, right? Obviously the contention one is the richest so far, but there are other ones that we're exploring. In fact, on our updated plan view on the news release, you can see that there are some drill holes that were maybe on your other tab there. I can show you. Yeah, so you see these holes off to the west. I think they're like 23. You see those where your cursor is? If you click
Yeah.
the magnifying glass, do you mind? Makes it bigger. Yeah.
Ah,
So 18, 19, and 20. So these were targeting a parallel dike as well. And we don't have assays for these yet, but visually we could see that there appeared to be some
looks like there's
perspective.
some structure coming up here. Is
That's
that
an arroyo.
okay?
So yeah, so that would be actually the road kind of goes down a ridge line, and this whole area where we're looking at here is kind of like a bowl. Um, so it's in terms of mining, right? It would be potentially low strip if we could extend the mineralization over to the west.
Kind of
And
handy. You can go right off the road and put
well, and that's why we had to actually. So the RC rig, it's an interesting project because we need this big RC rig to get through this Bisbee Group rock, and
yeah.
it needs a 50-foot drill pad because you need to actually put the you need to have the rig and then the compressor and the rod sloop all in line. So
Okay.
we actually have to drill off these big roads.
Okay.
Um, and so we just got lucky there. I think that the
But they're going
structure.
all over the place. You got roads all over the place.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a bit of it's a good situation to be in, but there's a lot of dozer work that goes into this. And you know what? Thankfully, we own this land and we don't have to permit these roads. We just, we build them where we want, which is another advantage over a property that would be maybe on BLM ground. Now where it says West Side area, this is interesting. So we have a few holes over here, and the reason that we're interested in expanding over to the west is because
Are the whites your holes, the collars? Is
yes,
that okay?
yeah, those are from last year.
Okay.
And so this whole area was actually slated to be open pit mined in the early 80s, and we believe it to be more silver rich. And the reason that we think that it never was mined was because of the price action in the silver market when the Hunt brothers got involved
Okay.
and kind of shot it up and then collapsed it. And this was being developed during that period. And so I think when the price of silver collapsed, the operator at the time elected to pursue the more gold rich part of the north contention pit, which is where we have been hitting our high grade gold.
Up in here.
Yeah.
Wow. Really good
And
stuff.
yeah, so you can see that's where that big high wall is. And so they just took that deeper instead of spending their capital to push over to the west where there's more silver. So it's an opportunity for us to grow there as well. So I mean
So
it's amazing how many targets we have here.
so have you announced up to 17? Like is 18 and 21? Are
No,
those
so
pending? 19, 20?
So we went out of sequence. So we announced 0 to not to 8, and
Yeah.
then 9 through to 16 are still pending.
Okay. So
16, 17, and 17A are announced. And then 18 through to there's more that we've drilled since, but 18 through to 26 are also pending.
so 9, 16, 18.
No, 16's out, but all the green are pending. The
Okay.
orange were previously announced, and then the red were in the most recent release. Yeah,
And
so there's
folks,
a whole bunch.
that happened. Oh wow, you got lots down here, 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 here. Wow. Good stuff, Simon. You guys are, one of the inflection points that I talk about in exploration is when a company really starts to get a handle on the system and how to target. And I think you guys are at that point. Is that fair to say, Simon?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's been a long time coming here to get this together, right? The theory into the model, but I think we're demonstrating now that the model is valid, and we think it can still grow significantly.
Okay. Okay. And what's the longer term goal? Do you want to put the oxides into production and keep drilling for the depth for the CRD, or what is sort of on your short term and midterm focus or goals?
Yeah, like that's an interesting and complicated, interesting question with a somewhat complicated answer, just given the complexity of this system. Um, so one, we don't know so much about the CRD yet until we drill it and find out. So we're going to find out, right? I mean, it was a theory until now, and over the next 3 months, we'll find out. Um, so honestly, can't if we hit a large sulfide system at depth, I think that that will become very obvious what
Yeah.
will be the focus.
Okay.
Um, but if we don't, or if we're just sort of on the trail to finding the big prize, then I think it would make a lot of sense to continue to expand the open pit oxide target. And those, in the Western US right now, a billion ounce heap leach prospect, on with good metallurgy potentially on private ground, should fetch a valuation, I'd say well north of $100 million. Um, perhaps multiples of that, right? I mean, gold's $4,000 an ounce or 4,200 today.
Yeah.
These can be some of the lowest capex, opex type operations around, especially if you're in a mining friendly jurisdiction. And Cochise County, Arizona, is one of the friendliest within the friendliest at this point, right? I mean, the U.S. is kind of all in for mining right now, and Cochise County has always been all in for mining for the most part. So we're in a great area. Everybody's super supportive of seeing this mine, get back going again after a 30, 40-year hiatus. And I'd say it's a long-winded answer, but we're going to pursue both targets. And frankly, in a development type scenario, you would be developing both, right? You could open pit heap leach near surface and then pay back some of your development
To
costs in the
get down
underground.
to the
Yeah.
CRD. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. Now I kind of am wrapping my head around if you do a resource, it'll be on the oxide, right?
It will be very clear that it will be a starter. It'll be a, truly a maiden resource estimate on the oxides, and it would be in the context of growth and discovery at depth, particularly.
And you mentioned like these CRDs and even the porphyries that drive them can be found in clusters. Are you guys looking to add to your land position in the Tombstone project?
Well, actually, we have been adding. We added significantly in May. We staked some ground that came available, and we are, yeah, short answer is yes, we are looking to add where we can. And we've been fairly successful in that over the last few years. I mean, like I said before, it's all patented claims around us, and a lot of these are just owned by random families or estates that of, some uncle passed away and he had a 20-acre plot in Tombstone, and I get contacted once in a while, to pick these up. So over the past 5 years, we've picked up 5 patents sort of in situations like that. And there are opportunities to get more. But in terms of like, I want to be very clear in terms of geologic potential of our model, we've got everything that we want. And
Okay.
so additional land that we would pick up would be either for, room for development or a buffer or, maybe some grassroots prospecting. But in terms of the real meat and potatoes, we've got it here within this outline that we're looking at here on your screen.
Okay. So going forward, you got a bunch of pending assays. You got the core rig going in. You got money. These are all good things. And so what's on the near-term horizon? Did I sort of put the menu for people?
I think, I really want to add to that, but I think you got it. I mean, it's basically 3 months of drill results coming, um, later this year into the next year. I'll be at all the conferences in January, February. We're doing the Metals Forum in Vancouver, be out at PDAC for the first time. Um, and very busy time of reporting coming up. And honestly, the labs have been a little slow. So that's sort of pushed it into the new year. A lot of these holes were drilled in July and August, September. and we're still drilling. So, we can't control that. Everybody's faced with that now, which I guess is a good thing. It means that there's interest and money coming in.
Yep.
Oh, so we just have to be a little patient for the results, but not too patient because they've been in there for a while already.
Put a light of fire under them, Simon.
Well, I every day I email my account rep for an update, so believe me.
I live in Mexico, have for the last 10 years after I moved away from Vancouver, where I lived all my life. And I kind of found a little bit of a trick to get things going a little bit faster. I know that a lot of the delays at the lab are in sample preparation. And what I did here in Mexico when I was drilling a project is I'm in the city of Zacatecas, and ALS has a prep lab here in the city of Zacatecas. And so there was no line up there, a bottleneck, and then they would send the concentrates to Vancouver. Do you have any?
We're doing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been not Zacatecas, but Hermosillo. And
Okay.
so we've been doing that for the last few years, and it's actually worked very well because you're right, the backlog has been in prep, but this is a new issue. The lab that we use, and they're excellent. Okay, they're a global brand. They have had equipment breakdown with their spectrometer or the
Uh,
ICP machine in
okay.
Vancouver. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a new thing that we're contending with. So I think they've had to source like replacement parts out of Europe. I yeah. So not to get too detailed. Great point. We
Well,
have been
I
doing that.
don't mind
We
you getting
Yeah.
too detailed because it gives my audience a little bit of an understanding. Folks, this isn't like going in for an X-ray or something like that. These results come from sophisticated machinery and stuff like this, and so these delays happen because there's a lot of pressure on these labs, and so they got a lot of work to do, and they're doing the best that they can, but sometimes that's even with the drill rig. You run into
Yeah.
problems with the drill rig, you got to get a new part in. It's part of the business.
Yeah, yeah, and we got to be really careful, right? Because like what you just said about the workaround, I mean, we were boastful about that. We said, hey, we've got this workaround too. We get results faster than anyone, and up until now that was true. But now it's not, and we're we're in line with everyone else, so it's just the way it goes. But
Yep.
you never know, right? I mean, if gold continues to go higher into the new year. I know a lot of these investment banks and analysts have targets that are like 5,000, right? Maybe the delay works to our advantage, right? Maybe if we have more good results out in late December, January, you never know, right? So it's just kind of
Yeah,
it's
you
it's
never
anybody's
like what
guess.
could
Yeah.
happen, folks, is gold could go up, silver could go up, and what looked like a delay you're unhappy with, all of a sudden, maybe not as many people are putting out reports, assay reports, and you've got some good assays to deliver into a strong market.
It's a guessing game, right? I mean, it's that's just what we contend with in the venture market, and you have to just roll with it. So, I think we put our results out last week on the most negative sentiment day of the last year, probably. I mean, and I really struggled with that because, I thought, well, it looked like gold was recovering on the Monday. So, we
Right.
sent the news release off to the regulators, and once you do that, um, it's
You're
gone,
on a
right? You
timeline
you
then.
got to put it out, and then we put it out, and gold dropped $100, and everybody sold their gold miners, and you know if we'd waited a week, it would have been different. But you can't withhold results, right? You have to get
Right.
them out in a timely manner. So there's all these things that come into play that maybe the retail investors aren't aware of, and it's probably a good opportunity to just get people a little bit up to speed on that, right? It's not always up to us, right? It's a highly regulated industry, and there's all sorts of factors at play: assay labs, securities regulation, rig availability and all that,
Now, some of
which,
that
yeah.
is out of your control, but something that is in your control that I wanted to ask you about because on my checklist, it has become much more important to me, which is, I was always really, let's say 80% of my analysis was focused on a project and its drilling. And what's moving up that list is the digital marketing, telling the story. And what is your feelings on that, Simon? Because I like to find a good project that and a management that wants to aggressively be out there telling their story. Because one thing I find is that it helps the valuation, which helps the cost of capital. And so, what are your feelings on that topic?
Well, I think when you have a good story and an undervalued asset and an active game plan and robust news flow, you need to be out there telling the story. And digital marketing is a very effective method of doing so. And so we try to strike a balance between marketing and exploration spending, right? So there are some groups that spend a lot on marketing and not so much on exploration and vice versa. So there's no perfect answer to this. And actually it's a little frustrating when people pretend that there is. But if for me, from my perspective, we're I'm not a geologist. I'm from a marketing capital raising background, so that's sort of how I got involved in the industry.
Mhm.
So I'm always looking for effective ways, and as you say, digital is effective because it's cheap to deliver information over the internet, right? But you do need to make sure that the digital marketing provider has a real audience, that is providing this information to investors that would have some ability to do something with it. I think that's where a lot of money is wasted. I mean, advertising to people that don't know about it. I mean, what's the point? So I try to find um, audiences that are interested, right? For whatever reason, they don't necessarily need to be technically minded investors. They might be gold bugs. They might be, skeptics of, you know, the debt based system of the West, or there's all sorts of different yeah, like me too, obviously. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, right, on a recorded interview, of course, but
Well, there's nothing conspiratorial about the debt. I
yeah,
call it a death spiral of debt, and that's real. That's sitting right there. You can see it, and nobody seems to want to do anything about it. And, I think that that's the number one mover of what has happened with gold. And I really think a secondary thing is that they've broken the debt and current fiat currency system. And, gold and silver and precious metals stocks are the way to take advantage of that stupidity.
totally. And actually, as we're chatting about this, I just had something I wanted to mention on the marketing front for us. And this is a huge factor moving forward, and it has been. But we're in the US, okay? And the US is the richest country in the world. They've been doing pretty well the last few years. There's the tech bubble going on, the debt bubble, and all these things. But now you've awakened, I think the gold to 4,000 has awakened the sleeping giant, and that's the U.S. investor. And what better than Tombstone, really, when you think about it? I mean, you probably know about Tombstone's folklore.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Canada don't, but it's like their
They must
Barkerville.
not have watched those old Western movies like I did when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have, but it's almost like if you live in the Western U.S., chances are your parents have taken you there for some RV trip to see, where Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp roamed the streets and shot up the cowboys and everything. So it's got a real cultural connection to what the Western U.S. Frontier history, and so we've got that association with silver, right, in particular.
Yeah.
And when you get the US investor thinking, wow, gold's out of reach, I better buy some silver, right? Poor man's gold. Wow, hey, what about that Tombstone movie? That's where the silver mines were. I wonder who owns that now. Oh, Aztec owns it. So it's a pretty cool touch point. And so we've actually switched to we're testing different newswire services. And this is like a little in the weeds, but We just did a news release with Access Wire, and they sent us a report showing where all the clicks came from. And usually, most of the clicks come from the usual suspects, right? The brokers in Vancouver and Toronto. But we had more clicks from the US on that last news release. So I think the message is getting out there. And we actually did a TV campaign last year on CNBC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was expensive. It was expensive. It was, it wasn't cheap, but we ran a few spots, probably a bit too early. We ran them in January, and the gold price kind of took off February, March. But yeah, we saw a lot of volume coming in on the OTC ticker. Just and it was all factual, right? It was just basically, it had to be, it always has to be factual. Let me be clear, but it was non-promotional. Let's say it was just, Aztec Minerals has the Tombstone project in Arizona, and it ran 30-second spots after power lunch or whatever the show is,
Yeah.
and it really took, and people were phoning. So just in terms of digital marketing and angles to get a broader audience, our location in the US, the mining friendly nature of America right now, the debt crisis that they find themselves in, the rocket ship that gold and silver are on, these are all um, you know these are all part of the puzzle for us that we're putting together right now.
Well, I can give you some inside baseball there, Simon, because I'm a stats guy. I grew up my mother was in the racehorses, and I learned how to read the past performance of racehorses when I was about 8 to 10 years old. And so I'm a real stats guy. And one thing I find is that I don't have the biggest audience. I don't have the smallest audience. I got a pretty healthy audience. But what I find is that when I look at the back end of my YouTube statistics, I can see that, the average viewer watches about 40% of my shows. So I know that I have a solid audience. And then when I look at other shows, I then go look at the stock action. And if I see an increase in the volume, I know that okay, this has a real audience. Something else I've noticed over the last year or so is that my audience in the United States has grown quite dramatically. And I know this because I look at the volume when I look at companies I follow that have a listing in the United States as well as in Canada, especially in the New York Stock Exchange and the old Amex. I see almost 10 times the volume. Uh, uh,
Wow.
so,
Yeah.
that tells me that I got a pretty good audience and I got a pretty good audience in the United States as well.
Well, and that's that's great validation for, I think, what a lot of people thought. It's sometimes hard to get those stats. So thanks for sharing that.
YouTube.
Um,
YouTube
yeah.
has great stats in the back end.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's game on, I guess, right? Like
So if
let's
you've
go.
got somebody like me wanting you to do something with them, ask them about their back end stats. Because I find, you know what happens, Simon? Stats can be gamed on the internet, right? I don't buy any of my audience. My audience has all been built up from my 20 years of doing research and reporting. And so, when you buy them, what'll happen is you ask them, well, what's your average view time per video? And if you buy them, because they come from bot farms, they click on and click off. They click play and then they click and then they leave quickly. So if you ask them their back end statistics and they don't want to tell you, well, it's probably because they're buying their audience. And you can actually get the confirmation of that in the stock's volume after a show's been done.
Interesting. Yeah. The click-through rate. Gotta pay close attention to that. Yeah,
You do, you
totally.
do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this, Simon, right away, and I'll watch the statistics and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that.
Did you have any closing comments, Simon?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for making us a pick, and thanks for the exposure here. And to anybody watching, happy to pick up a phone call or an email. I'll just give my phone number out, 604-619-7469. It's on our website. I'm available on WhatsApp, Signal, text message, phone call, whatever works, or email. And happy, like, Tombstone is such a cool project. I'm very lucky to be involved in it, and I'd love to have more people kind of involved as shareholders, and happy to show the project if you're near us or whatever. So let's
Well, when
chat.
I was a kid, I loved to watch those old Western movies, and some places that will stand out to Western investors are Tombstone, Nevada, The Great Gold Rush. These are all movies I watched. And something else, Simon, I found out when I moved down to Mexico, my girlfriend has a family in Durango, and I went to visit Durango, and a lot of those old Western movies were made in Durango.
Yeah, right, right. Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. They have statues of like John Wayne and all these old movie stars that I used to watch when I was a kid on the when we didn't have 100 channels, we only had like a handful of channels. So
good old
yeah,
days.
Tombstone, everybody in the United States knows Tombstone.
Totally. Well, we're right there. So
The OK Corral.
they do that twice a day. They reenact that.
Oh, wow, cool. I'll have
Yeah.
to get up there and visit your
Yeah.
project one
Let's
day.
make it happen. Let me know.
All right, Simon. Well, thank you for coming on and good luck with all. I love finding a project when it's kind of at an inflection point, and I think you're at that inflection point. So keep on doing that great work, Simon. You got a good team there, and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Alan. Pleasure to speak with you today.
All right, folks, as always, you know the routine. I don't make buying or selling recommendations. My shows are for information purposes only. I try to be an idea generator and give you some insights with these interviews, but it's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. And I always emphasize doing the homework because I believe that the best investors are the most informed investors, and they tend to make less emotional decisions based on the fluctuations of gold and silver and in the stock prices. But I think there's a very good value proposition with Aztec, and I think it'd be good for you to do that homework. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.